Voice assistants, formulated through data collection via human interactions, are used to normalize surveillance and cultural bias. By assigning personalities to the AI assistant, major companies like Google and Amazon use seduction crafted on human connections to advertise the assistant's efficiency and necessity in daily life. As we progress further into the artificial intelligence age, companies like Spotify will learn to capitalize on these new avenues of hyper personalization despite privacy concerns. The one surprise that I had while reading Thoreau's The Voice Catchers was the power of the narrative to normalize surveillance in voice assistants. This brings me to the idea of seductive surveillance on page 28, in which major companies push the convenience, affordability, and the capabilities of the voice assistant as a means to kind of convince consumers that these robots are crucial assistants in their homes. At the same time, these companies collect data via voice, but make privacy policies regarding what they do with that data super vague and convoluted. So that causes users to become discouraged by the use of their data. Instead of trying to fix something that they can't change, they become resigned to the power of technology as a means to make their lives more efficient. This is something that has really happened with Gen Z. I don't think that younger generations are as concerned about privacy as older generations are, and instead just accept it as something that is inevitably part of the world we live in, and convenience is more important. Alexa herself has become super ingrained in Amazon's marketing strategy. She is the personality and the face of the brand, even though she's a robot. Thoreau cites Trulino, who pulls data from two researchers, quoting, quote, designing a seductive product involves a promise and a connection with the audience or users' goals and emotions, and suggests that seductive operates at multiple levels, from technology to marketing discourses and governance. That's on page 30, which really leads me to my second surprise, which is that dichotomy between AI personalities, which are crafted in human interactions. So that dichotomy between human and robot, and therefore using the robot, which is crafted on human data, to better convince people to use home assistants. So there's that deep interconnectedness and reliability on each other for the voice assistant to work. Database models use deep learning methods from human interactions to craft their AI. And I was really surprised by the power of the human on the robot and the lengths that companies would go to supply these robots with personalities. One quote, strong humanoid to human connections encourage friendship and trust and would mean fewer questions about the data their assistants were taking and using behind the scenes, on page 58. So that is that marketing ploy of seduction. It shows that companies are self-aware about their products and know that that power of human connection and creating a story is the way to attract people to these AI assistants. Hey Siri, what's your favorite color? Computers don't usually get to choose one, but I'll say indigo. What's yours? So even in that interaction, Siri's establishing herself as a computer, so it shows that companies know their positioning. But she still chooses a color and she asks me what mine is. So she's trying to connect with me as a human, even though she's a robot. So that irony in which technology is presented as being human, but is based on human interaction, and then is used to profile and control users, was super interesting to me throughout this whole book. Something that can't go unsaid is what Thoreau claims to be algorithmic bias, where AI and robots are presented as being adaptable, but that data that they're using to craft their data models is all from white, English-speaking, middle-class humans. So that shows that discrimination is part of our culture. And these AI robots that are supposed to move past that are based on biases. And it kind of made me think, what if I'm applying for a job as a woman and my voice will be used to kind of dock points against me because I'm not a man? Thoreau notes, quote, the self and shopping are defined together on page 229. So again, personalities are becoming defined by consumerism, that artificial intelligence and marketers attempting to capitalize on our reliance on these technologies. Which leads me to surprise 3, that's idea of the skill app versus traditional advertising. So Amazon and Google have not yet allowed companies to directly advertise using voice prompts when a customer engages with Alexa or Google Home in conversation, which was surprising to me because wouldn't we want to capitalize on that data and that opportunity to advertise? I mean, Thoreau does state Amazon and Google welcome the hidden tracking of visitors via apps, even as they often won't allow obvious advertising on the same apps. That's on page 203. So once again, companies are using seductive surveillance and greatly influencing the way that their customers view them. So by limiting advertising to these third-party skill apps, Amazon presents itself as protecting the interest of consumers by limiting directly pushing information, but at the same time, they're still collecting data behind the scenes. So it's presenting Amazon as approachable and protecting the customer, but still using data collection. Thoreau really cites Drummond on an innovation that highlights that connection with the human that is throughout the whole book. Quote, voice assistants would eventually sense whether a person is upset or angry and change the tone of a targeted ad based on that data, which he calls tonal intelligence. That's on page 213. And that idea of tonal intelligence really made me think about how this AI is going to impact my favorite brand, Spotify. So Spotify already invests and implements AI. In 2022, they acquired Sonatic, which is an AI voice platform that creates voices from texts. So with that acquisition, Spotify positioned itself to be part of this AI voice revolution. They, on their website, say, the voice technology could allow us to give context to users about upcoming recommendations when they aren't looking at their screens, end quote. So that shows that this connection to robot voice without the screen shows that Amazon and Google and these home assistants really have infiltrated our technological cultures and our marketing ploys as well. This was further implemented in 2023 when Spotify released the AI DJ. So again, voice and AI is just part of our culture. So major companies are trying to capitalize on the marketing fundamentals of personalization when implementing artificial intelligence. And again, that human connection. So the DJ itself has its own personality. As artificial intelligence learns to better respond to users' tones, mood, context, what we refer to as tonal intelligence, I was thinking that Spotify could capitalize on this new avenue of personalization so that AI DJ, the voice assistant, will better be able to provide music recommendations and deepen algorithms. Thoreau cites Mattersight, a contact center analytics company that received, quote, a patent for a method by which a digital assistant will tailor its interactions with users based on their personalities. So companies will eventually use voice identification and other speech bio profiling for ad personalization. That's on page 216. So this really made me think, how would Spotify implement this AI based on the tone of my voice? So I say, hey DJ, I'm going through a breakup. Can you recommend a playlist? So that DJ will be triggered by the word breakup, but also my voice as a young woman. So my age, my gender, and my mood. Perhaps I'm sad or I'm angry. And then using that voice information, they can craft a super hyper personalized playlist based on the tonal characteristics of my voice. And then, in turn, Spotify as a brand has access to that information that the user shared by being vulnerable through my voice, and they can use that data to better advertise or even share my data with advertising companies. So I'm going through a breakup, next thing I know I get an advertisement on my phone for ice cream. That also would allow Spotify to present themselves as the leading brand for emotional and intimate personalization in music recommendations.